First off, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for taking the time to join us as we present our recommendations and analysis in response to an incident in which your company failed to thrive. Today's recommendations were developed by the Quack Attack group of consultants, and this presentation will provide an overview with full details available on the wiki that we'll provide a link today to you. So today we're going to look at what happened, and we're going to apply those recommendations into the COBIT security standards. As I said, there's the full detailed recommendations available on the wiki there. Our recommendations today are designed to move TJX away from the image of what not to do and position TJX to start out as a best practice organization and have the full potential and really the option to become an innovative and industry-leading organization. A lot can be said by consultants, management. We can analyze this in the boardroom, but what I'd like to do is show you a clip from what your customers are seeing about this incident.
Largest data breach in U.S. history is getting even larger tonight. The Wall Street Journal report says as many as 200 million customer records were stolen from Framingham-based TJX, which is the parent company of TJ Maxx and Marshalls. And now a local company is telling us that it actually warned TJX it was vulnerable to hackers. Warnings they say fell on deaf ears. Mary Saladin explains in a story that's new at 11.
It turns out the biggest security breach in history was as easy as a hacker sitting outside a Marshalls near St. Paul, Minnesota, and pointing a telescope-shaped antenna toward the store to capture the wireless transactions going on inside.
And what this bad person was doing outside was listening to that traffic over wireless networks. So no one knew they were there. They're invisible. The wireless network's invisible. They listened for about 2 days, got all this information, credit card information, bank account information, and then used that information to go back into the network and then compromise the TJX headquarters in Framingham, because now they have effectively a key to the door.
To make matters worse, TJX allegedly failed to encrypt their data.
Not only did they leave their windows wide open with the wireless network, but they left their wallet on the counter with the money hanging out of it.
And even with good encryption, you still need other measures to make sure you are locking out people who might be the bad guys outside.
Devising such wireless security measures is a large part of what Newbury Networks does. The Boston-based firm holds contracts with the federal government as well as numerous companies in the banking and financial securities industry. They had tried to sell their services to TJX a few years back, but TJX declined.
In the case of TJX, it was not an atypical response. I'm just starting with wireless. It's not a big deal. I don't think people are going to see this. The part they keep forgetting is that without location access, it's like putting a steel door on a grass hut. I mean, it doesn't care how great your door is in the front. The hut is incredibly porous. You can walk right through it.
Security experts call the TJX breach the ultimate wake-up call for corporations like TJX, who up until now downplayed such a wireless threat. In Framingham, I'm Mary Saladin at News Center 5.
So that provided a nice overview of the incident as the general population sees it. That kind of publicity is not something we want, and it's something that no organization should ever really have again. It was all preventable. Worst part about that clip is it said that TJX was negligent and they knew about it. So some of the fundamental issues that we're going to look at today as we go through our recommendations. First off, TJX specializes in discount retail merchandise, or they're a discount retailer. You cannot go in with a discount approach to security of consumer information. Business will not sustain you. The government will shut you down, essentially, if you continue to have these vulnerabilities and problems. So as some of the issues we're going to present, namely the chief cause of this incident was the wireless network security. So we're going to look at that. Even the basic wired network security, there were some problems with there. Lack of user account management and network monitoring were some of the issues that we'll tackle today. So first we're going to jump into user access and account controls. As we said in the analysis, TJX did not have a user account control in place with encryption or data on their systems. Once the intruders figured out some basic account information, they were able to go in and log in as whomever they wished with some simple tools. Our recommendation is that we need to implement data encryption auditing system and a single sign-on solution, so that users have more. We have more accountability over our users that are logging into the network. Another issue with this area is that while there was access control problems, there was a really big lapse in security policies, or lack of security policies. So we need to make sure we have the policies to enforce these particular technologies as we implement them. One technology that we're going to introduce or present to you today is going to take all three of these and kind of roll them into one. Competitive pricing. This software in the Enterprise Edition is able to offer us all of the tools that we're going to need to keep our systems safe. It's going to give us reporting as well as user authentication and single sign-on. Cost-wise, training-wise, this is a fairly easy product to implement, so our lead time will be fairly short with this. We can roll this out in a conservative estimate of 6 months, pricing being not too out of the question. So that's our recommendation for those first two pieces there. Another issue we had is monitoring. We had folks for 18 months on our networks and we didn't know about it. That's a problem. We need to make sure that we're monitoring all of our networks, all of our servers. Our recommendation for that piece is going to be SecureWorks. And so this is going to, obviously I'll send you all these links as well, but this software is going to allow us to roll in all those pieces and have a nice interface for our consultants to look at, to make sure they'll be aware of any intrusions or breaches. So I've talked briefly on a couple of things that we're going to do internally to change our business and make sure that we're providing a safe environment for user data. As I mentioned, TJX, we're a discount retailer. We're not in the business of storing data and warehousing data. As such, our recommendation is that TJX removes itself from being in the position of housing data that potentially could get leaked again. How do you do this? Using a merchant point of sale provider. Our recommendation is Merchant Warehouse. For a small fee, they're going to handle all those transactions for you. We can remove all that data from our networks, and these folks are going to handle it. There's a per transaction fee. Right now, we need to establish credibility and reinstill confidence in our consumer base. Using a firm like this, the advantage to using a service like this at the outset, like I said, it's going to reinstill some confidence in our consumer base, and also give us some time to look at what happened and how we can improve it if we do decide to internalize it again. But in the meantime, we can continue to run those transactions, and we'll utilize a different company. And really, it's a good policy for risk mitigation at this point. As we are a discount retailer, let's get back to our business core until we can decide what other avenues we want to go down. One quote that I found appalling in CBS News, your organization, this came from a vice president. It was quoted to say that we are still vulnerable with WEP as our security key. It must be a risk we are willing to take for the sake of saving money. I'm hoping that your corporate environment has changed and realized that those small savings do not add up. The cost of this incident, as we'll get into later, well surpassed any savings you would have realized by maintaining those old technologies. One concept that our consultancy is recommending you introduce is something called Tiger Teams. Probably not too widely known, but what a Tiger Team is it's a group of engineers that gets together, and we're going to talk about security, and we'll talk about how we can beat it. So you could look at it as a meeting of hackers inside your network. So the people that are maintaining your systems, well, let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation of how we can get into those systems if we were from the outside. Tiger Teams in place prior to this incident should have been able to recognize that WEP was a weakness on the network and should have been able to recommend change, and as we'll talk about in a second here, move into WPA or the WPA2 now to secure those wireless networks. A couple other points with this is we need to make sure that our antivirus software or our intrusion is staying up to date with emerging threats. There were some big lapses in how software was pushed around the network at TJX at the time, and so we need to make sure we centralize and update those so they don't have an easy time in intruding our networks and planting malware or anything like that. Another bulkier piece of software that TJX needs to implement immediately is a cryptographic key management system. As we continue to have more and more network security keys and different things, we need a software that can manage all those centrally without forcing us to hand out individual or keys to individuals. We can use a content management or a cryptographic key management software that can house all those, and we can kind of not be as exposed in our keys. TJX has a lot of retail locations. As such, we have a lot of access points and different network attached nodes that all have keys. So as we give those to certain individuals or have different keys created, we run a higher risk of those keys getting exposed. With a key management software, we can change those or update them from a central location and only have a certain number of people exposed to those actual keys, maintaining a secure environment on our networks. We've spent a little time looking at each of these a couple of major failures. I'm going to go over a list of high-level recommendations at this point. The first thing, based on the fact that these intruders were on our networks for 18 months, that tells me that we did not have the proper IT security and compliance staff on board at the time of the intrusion. If we did, those folks were not doing their jobs. It's unacceptable for anyone to be on our network for any period of time, but 18 months is excessive. So we need to ramp up our IT security and compliance department. If we don't have one, we need to establish one. If we have one, we need to double its size and double its responsibilities. We need to completely overhaul the networking environment within TJX. It's clear that we're lacking firewalls and some basic network infrastructure that is common practice. There's no way a user from a store in St. Paul, Minnesota should have been able to access our corporate networks in Massachusetts. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it seemed quite easy for these folks, and so we need to change that. So implementation of firewalls, segmenting our networks, simple things. Utilizing outside vendors that specialize in IT data security and processing. When I say processing, I'm talking about point-of-sale merchant processing. These folks are specialists in what they do, much the same as if they were looking for discount clothing, they would come to us. If we're looking for data security and processing security, let's look at them. They have the resources, and we can take the limelight off of our processes and put it on them until we can rebuild and get into a better position to come back and maintain that customer confidence. We need to make a commitment right now at this level that we're going to stay vigilant in staying current with IT trends and improving technologies. Anytime something changes, we need to be aware of it and really think about it for our particular application. The folks on the outside that are trying to get into our networks at this point are one step ahead of us. We need to turn those tables, and we need to make sure that we're being progressive in our IT policies and implementations. Bottom line today, what is the value of customer confidence? How do you put a price tag on it? Right now, I can tell you that this incident, on basic assumptions, is currently looking at about $4.5 billion in costs to TJX Corporation. Another similar incident, those costs are going to continue to snowball. As we look at fines and different regulatory pieces, we got off light on that part of it this time, but our costs are still at $4.5 billion on this incident. Our recommendations today, we're asking for a one-time investment of around $750,000 to ballpark $1 million figure, and there will be some additional recurring service fees as we look at bringing in outside vendors to process our data or our credit card transactions, or per transaction fee that they're going to charge us. But we need to do that so that we can put a price and evaluation on customer confidence. Like I said, those are the high-level recommendations from our group of consultants today. I would encourage you to look at the more detailed information available on the wiki. I want to thank you again for your time today, though, and I'm hopeful that you take our recommendations and make the proper changes to move TJX from a what not to do to a best business practice organization.